Hey guys, so welcome to the very first video on our sculpting in Zbrush, sculpting a likeness in Zbrush. And in this video, we are gonna start from a sphere, like I told you guys, and we're gonna take that challenge a little bit higher. So I'm gonna be doing a female actress. So like I told you, making a female or like a child's likeness or portrait in general is so much more difficult than making a male character, or like an old male character especially. So let's see how this will go. And what I will be doing, instead of like wasting a lot of time, is that I will be recording myself sculpting, and then I will like make the video faster, and then I will be talking about what I'm doing. Especially that when I'm sculpting, I waste a lot of time just like moving around the model or looking at my references, and I don't want to like keep you guys waiting a long time just for me to look around my references or like moving around the model. So with that said, let's start and let's see how it goes. So yeah, so it's also a good opportunity, guys, to show you that there is no like special skills behind it. Like all the great artists that I admire and I follow, and I see them like working from scratch. I see them always start with like simple stuff, like so yeah, don't think that the people who are like good at sculpting, they would sculpt something amazing in like 5 minutes. Don't get your expectations high. So what I'm doing now is that I'm just like starting from a Dynamesh sphere, and what I'm doing is that I'm starting with like an indication of having like a skull in the beginning, and then it will help me a little bit. It's not gonna be like I'm sculpting a realistic skull. It would be just an indication of like the general bones and landmarks for me to start to see where my features will be. So this way I would have that in mind while I'm sculpting the portrait. And if I'm making a likeness, in the very beginning, I don't care at all about the likeness, and that's what I keep telling you guys in the feedback tier. The people who are sending me their portraits or like likeness sculpts, for some time I just ignore the likeness at all, and I work with them on the anatomy or like the sculpting part of it, and then we look at the likeness later once we have like correct anatomy and correct shapes. So that's what really matters for me in the beginning. So if you saw like the image that I grabbed from my second screen to show you guys what the references that I'm looking at now is, basically just skulls and like an crochet of face anatomy. And that's what I care for now. So once I have like a generic indication of a skull, I start fleshing out the parts like the eyes muscles, and then the nose, for example. And here I'm like trying to get like the mouth. So yeah, just like very simple indications, and it's gonna look horrible for like a couple of minutes until it starts to look better. And as you can see, when I'm adding volumes or shapes to my sculpt, it's gonna be at least 90% influenced by the direction and the shape of the muscles of the face. So that's why I advise you to always have like a reference for the face muscles next to you. So moving around, like sculpting like the furrows and the muscles, like the masseter, and a little bit of an indication for the neck. And when things get messed up, I would fix them later with my move brush. And what I care about that was just like pushing around the volumes and in my Dynamesh. Then I will be able to fix them later. And every time you would see like me pausing a little bit. It's just me looking at my reference on the second screen. So yeah, still looks ugly so far. Just trying to find the generic kind of shapes for the features. And that's another thing that I talked to you guys a lot about in the feedback. To have correct topology or at least some edge loops around the features of the face, especially the eyes, so that it would help you to sculpt the eyes and the eyelids and the nose and all of that. So I think I will be doing that also. So here I'm like fleshing the cheeks area a little bit, some muscles, some fats, especially the cheeks area is like really fatty, and trying, which is very difficult in a Dynamesh, trying to like split the ears and split the eyelids, which I'm gonna struggle a little bit with until I could do it in a better way. And again, trying to make the portrait looks nice also from the side view. Still looks horrible so far, but once I think it will start to look better once I start to zero mesh it and have some decent edge loops around the features, like around the ears and around the eyes. So yeah, the nasolabial furrows, the jaw open, the jaw bones, and the trying to fix the neck, and then trying to make the eyes look a little bit more decent, bringing back the ears in its natural place. Still, the skull looks very weird. The problem is that when I'm watching it now, I can see like the whole thing, but when you're working on the portrait in real time, your eyes is like focused on the area that you are working on. That's why it's always nice to go back and look at the whole thing. So now I added more resolution to my Dynamesh so that I can define my features better. So far I don't care about any likeness at all. I just want it to look natural as a head sculpt. I'm just adding a couple of spheres so that I have something that I can sculpt my eyelids around. And yeah, still looks horrible. Eyelids or eyes in general will never look nice until you have decent topology loops around it, or if you of course like have like huge resolution, and it will give you like enough resolution to like sculpt it over it. But with lower resolution topology, you will still need to have some decent edge loops around it. So again, every time I'm posing, I'm just looking at reference on my second screen. So trying now to make the ears look a little bit better. And ears are very tricky for me until today. I still, when I'm sculpting ears, I have to look at reference while I sculpt them. What I'm doing now is a trick that I use sometimes to like try to separate the ears from the head, is that I just like mask the area around the ears and move it inside. And by the way, guys, this whole video is like 1 hour, and the whole sculpt from sphere to the final result on this video is I've done it in around 4 hours. So I sped it up to make it into 1 hour. And of course, like these 4 hours, there's at least like 1 hour, 2 hours just wasted me moving around the model and looking at reference. It's also not very so you see now I'm like working on the lips, trying to flesh it out a little bit. It's starting to look decent now. And what I wanted to say, guys, is that it's not also very easy for me to start from a sphere, since I got lazy recently and I always start from a base mesh. So the only reason that I started from a sphere here, just to show you guys, because I know that most of you like to do that. So again, this Patreon page is about being professional, of course, but in the same time, you know, it's just me doing my personal work, so why not have a little bit of fun? So I wanted to do that to show you guys how to do it like from a sphere, but by any means I definitely advise you to start from a base mesh, because that's what you're gonna do in production. You will never work from a sphere in production, especially if you're making a human portrait. You will always have a base mesh in the company that you're working for, and if you started from a sphere, they are not gonna like that. So here I'm like trying to define like the bones of the skull, like on the foreheads, trying to move my kind of cornea around like the sphere for the eyes, and then making my eyelids follow it. And as you can see, I always try to keep a kind of thickness. And yeah, that's a little bit of a jump. I discovered that I paused my recording and I didn't resume, so it was kind of like 15 minutes later or something like that. And yeah, so now like I added more resolution to my Dynamesh so that I could smooth everything around. And now I have enough resolution to like have the ears to look a little bit more decent and separated from the heads. And now you can see like I have my zygomatic bone in place, like the foreheads and the ridges in place on the skull. I will now start like to add some like kind of temporalis volumes on the sides, and trying to fix the skull shape in general. I'm still not looking, I think, for any likeness reference so far. It's just me looking at skulls and crochets, but I think so soon I will start looking at reference. So as you can see, I'm always like trying to see my portrait, especially from 3/4, which is very, very important. So now I'm like trying to define my zygomatic bone, which is very, very important landmark, and most people get it wrong. And now I'm like trying to define my temporalis muscles, the muscles on the side of the face. So trying to make it work with the forehead. So yeah, once you start to have this kind of level of details, or this stage, changes are gonna be very, very minimal, and you're gonna be thinking about every small change that you're gonna be doing. So it's not gonna be as fast as what you would do in like the very beginning. So as you can see, I'm like also like going to side view, like trying to make the skull look natural, trying to give her like kind of a cranium volume, because that's another mistake that a lot of people does, is that they try to make the heads not just like a sphere. They don't have like enough space for the cranium of the skull. And now I think I'm moving the mouth around. I think I started now to look at the likeness reference, yeah, because now I'm like trying to define like the placing of the mouth, and trying to see like how the nose looks like from the profile. So again, my all-time struggle of separating the ears from the head, especially with a Dynamesh. It's not the easiest thing to do. And now I duplicated my model, and I have like a zero emissions guide brush, and I'm gonna give it some guides with some loops, and I'm gonna spend some time doing that, although I don't have to, because that's not gonna be my final topology. I'm gonna have to retopo it eventually for my production model, but the more decent topology you will have for your sculpt, even for your initial sculpt, it's gonna help you a lot, and it's not gonna give you a hard time when you're doing this. So that's why I spent some time trying to do this, so that I would get something decent that would help me with the sculpt itself. And as you can see, I'm just like doing like very generic loops that I know that I will need in my topology to help me when sculpting the features, especially the eyes, the mouth, and the nose. And then I would like go and bring my target polygon count for my zero mesh like really low, and then I zero mesh. And this one I didn't like so much, especially around the eyes, so I'm gonna try to redo it again. I think I'm gonna spend some time trying to redo it, so sorry guys for this, so bear with me. But yeah, it just shows you that for me, having a decent edge flow around my features while sculpting is very important. Maybe because I'm used to sculpt from base meshes, that's why. And now I'm like try to poly paint with a kind of reddish color in the areas that I want my my zero emissions to add like more density in the topology. So this way, as you can see now, I have like more topology density around the areas that I painted in red. And now I'm gonna make a stupid mistake that I painted with like really dark reds or saturated red. And what's gonna happen now is that once I start my zero mesh, it's gonna be very, very dense in these areas. So you will see now. And as you can see, that looks ridiculous. So I'm gonna redo it again. So I think the next time is gonna be like the last time. So yeah. So as you can see, I try to always to have like circular continuous loops around the eyes, and also around like the nostrils, and around the tip of the nose. And yeah, I don't know why I took it like really seriously to have this kind of like decent topology in this stage. Especially like I told you guys, I'm gonna retopo it for production later, and I'm gonna show you this. Maybe I would make a video about how you can use wrap, the software wrap that you can use to wrap your sculpt over an existing base mesh. So I will show you how I use this software. It's very handy, and now they have like an integration with Zbrush. They call it Z-Wrap, so this will be helpful to show. Which is also very good for production. Like that's what I use for production when I make my sculpts, and then I have the base mesh and I want to wrap this sculpt to the base mesh. Or also sometimes I use it with a scan, if we have like a scan for our digidouble or our character from a film, and then I need to wrap it to the base mesh. So now I learned from my mistake. I'm back again to using like a light red to not make the features like very dense compared to the rest of the face. And I know that it's not like the best in the world, but I think this would be good for now. I don't want to keep redoing it. Zero measure will never give you like perfect topology, but it's decent enough for me to continue my sculpt. And yeah, like I told you, I know that I'm gonna retopo it again. So in this stage, it starts to become like really slow, the changes you're making, because now every change that I'm making is based on the likeness. Now I started to look at my likeness. So it's basically like you make the change, you keep looking at it from different angles, you keep looking at your reference. Does it match? Does it not? Like it's basically that, and that's a little bit boring for someone to watch someone doing. But for you, while you're doing it, it's very challenging, and it's not boring at all. But I don't know, it might be boring for you guys, so I just hope that you can bear with me, and maybe it would be helpful for you. So every time I feel like I got used to like the likeness, and I can see anything else to do, I start to move around to another feature of the face, like for example the ears or the nose. Especially the ears are always like really easy to just try to move away from the face and sculpt them a little bit. But of course, in this case, I still didn't work on the likeness that much, so I think I was just trying to bring it to a decent level to match the rest of the face features, since they started like polishing the eyes and the nose and the mouth. So I wanted to bring the ears into the same kind of like decent level. And the really cool thing about likeness sculpting that I think I've been also telling the people in the feedback tier a lot recently is that the more time you give to it, it's like it gets so much better with time, you know? So if you spend like 1 hour making a likeness, and if you spend like 1 month, it's gonna be ridiculous, you know. So that's why it's not good to work on your likeness for like a couple of hours. I would just say at least work on a likeness for at least like a week or a couple of weeks. And the thing is not only about the amount of hours you put in, it's just about how every time you're sitting and trying to figure out the likeness, you'd start to discover things that your eyes weren't seeing before. So that's why spending more time would make your likeness get so much better. It's like you keep adding to it, so the more time you give, the better level that you're gonna get likeness wise. So like I told you, now I'm like trying to look at the reference. So yeah, some of the important things that I like to do is to have enough depth in the nostrils, have enough length or depth in the eyelids, like thickness for the eyelids. And in the future videos, when we start to make like the production model, I will show you guys that I always try to make inner eye socket and mouth sockets, which is very important, especially when you start the shading. So now I started to give the model a little bit of an expression. I just wanted to see how it looks like with an expression. Again, just making a female, like really soft face without any wrinkles, or something that some features that you can play around to get the likeness. And especially that I don't have like any textures so far, so I was thinking maybe I can compensate for that with a little bit of an expression. So far the likeness of course is not there at all. I think it will start to appear at like the end of the video, like at the end of this 4 hours session. Which is again very tricky because it's a young female character. If you're making a likeness of a character that has like a very recognizable face, then it becomes very easier to make your likeness, that you can get a likeness in like 15 minutes or something like that. But when you're making a likeness of a character that has like a face that's that doesn't have like a very recognizable features, then it makes your life a little bit more difficult to catch the likeness. So yeah, here I'm like struggling with the mouth, and the mouth area is like very, very important. That you have to like add this kind of like fleshiness, like on the corners of the mouth, which a lot of people misses, and makes a huge difference. It makes it look more natural once you add this kind of volumes and fats around the mouth area. Here again, I'm like playing around with the brows, giving her a little bit of like a brow lower shape, making her, giving her like a concerned expression or look. And now here is my reference, so now you know which actress that I'm making. And I wanted to try to keep the reference away as much as possible, to keep it as a surprise to make you guys guess. But then at like the middle of recording the session, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I need to show the guys how I'm like looking at the reference, which is very important. So I started like grabbing my reference next to me on the same screen. And one other thing that you guys also need to know is that when you're working on a likeness and you start working in like a symmetrical sculpting, it is very difficult to get the likeness. So in this stage, like with only primary shapes, no colors or textures at all, still symmetrical, it is very, very difficult to see the likeness so far. But once you start breaking the symmetry, once you start like adding a little bit of like secondary and maybe even tertiary details to your model, and once you start to add like hair, even like when I will start adding some hair volume, like sculpted hair volume, it's gonna start to look better. And yeah, so once you start adding hair, once you start adding textures, once you start breaking the symmetry, is very important, breaking the symmetry. Once you start like adding skin details, this all will bring your likeness together. So I'm also trying to get like the likeness of her in the latest Avengers, the Infinity War film. So that's the look that I'm after. And that's the concerned look that you always find Scarlett Johansson has while she's acting. And that's the one that I'm like using now as my plan to make her look like the actress. So now I'm adding a sphere. to try to make like some volume for the hair. So again, nothing fancy, just a sphere, and then I'm gonna, I think, dynamesh it and just make this kind of like very quick and rough hairstyle that she has. And of course I will try first to get it as close as possible with the symmetry option on, and then of course I will have to break it because it's not symmetrical at all. And I will start to sculpt it asymmetrically. And as you can see, I don't care at all in this stage about any detailing, and that's also an advice for some of the people that I saw their work, and they start already, like even in a stage that's earlier than what I have now, they will start already to add like Texturing.xyz details, which is very early to do, you know. Sometimes I would use my Texturing.xyz details in like an earlier stage, but most of the times like I just use it like at the very end, you know. Now I'm like trying to sculpt the clumps of the hair. Very basic stuff, just like a clay build-up brush and a damp standard brush. So I build the volumes of the clumps with the clay build-up brush, and then I use later like a damp standard brush to sculpt or carve in the hair strands, like finer details to the hair. Yeah, trying to make it look a little bit noisy, like there's something going on, that it has like a different texture than the skin. Now like adding a little bit of lazy mouse, lazy radius, so that I can like sculpt the hair strands. Again, I'm not like taking anything seriously at this stage yet, so I'm concerned more about volumes, like you can see here. Even when I'm like sculpting strands, hair strands, it's just to add some noise, to make a difference between the skin material and the hair material. So I think there is like some people who are like really fast with their sculpting, and there's some people who likes to watch and spend time watching what they are doing. And for me, especially when I'm doing sculpting, I like to take my time more and then keep moving around the model, keep looking at textures. When I'm like sculpting, I never keep sculpting for longer than 1 minute on one angle. I keep like moving around. Even if I'm sculpting in the same area, I would be sculpting on it like from different angles. So yeah, I think it's very helpful, especially if you're making human anatomy, because it's very easy to get stuck into making things look perfect from one angle, and then it's fucked up from another one. So now I'm starting to be a little bit happy about the likeness, and I feel like I got like 30%, 40% of the likeness now, which is good enough in this stage. And especially, like I told you guys, that I know that once I break the symmetry, once I start like adding textures or like adding more details, it's gonna look more decent. Once I have better hair, it's gonna look even better. But you can see that how much the hair already added to the likeness, especially of course if you're making a female character, because we are used to see this female character with her hair long. So getting back again to my bony landmarks on the skull. I'm trying to carve in some volumes in the hair to give it this effect like there is layers in the hair itself, and it's not just some clay that I stuck on the head. So at some point I would feel like I'm like starting to like get blind and my eyes get used to the likeness. Like for example, now while I'm recording this, I'm seeing a lot of areas that I missed, but I'm sure when I was sculpting I couldn't see it. I was basically blind. I spent like this hours just sculpting from the sphere, so my eyes get used to what I'm sculpting and used to the references that I've been looking at, so I'm not aware about any changes anymore. And now I'm like looking at other images like from the profile, and if you guys remember the very first video of Walter White series, I talked about your reference and what kind of photos you collect in the reference. And I did the same thing here, like photos from every angle possible. Try to collect some images from the same event or something like that, like what I have here in the middle. This helps you to see how the likeness looks like from different angles in the same, under the same lighting and in the same like time and age of the actress or the actor or the character that you're sculpting. So she looks different in most of the references, so that's why I always keep getting back to my main reference. That's why I always tell you guys, collect your references, but always have like a hero reference that you're gonna be targeting at the end. So I might go back to this kind of references to like see how it looks like from different angles, but then I would always go back to my like hero reference, which is gonna be here in the Infinity War thing. I'm adding a little bit of volume to the eyelids, which is also another mistake some people do, is that they make the eyelids looks like they are like really thin, like there is no fats at all underneath them. So I'm still sculpting in the symmetry mode, which I think I should like break out of symmetry already, but I was like a little bit afraid to break the symmetry in this stage. That's one other thing that you keep doing while you're sculpting, especially likeness, that you keep like doubting yourself and you keep being scared and don't have the courage to like make a big change. So you keep just wasting time doing what painters would call licking, which is you just like working on a very tiny area for a long time because you're afraid to make changes to like bigger areas. That's a problem that I always have when I'm making a likeness, especially when I don't nail the likeness like 100%. So that's another furrow that's very important, which is like underneath the eyes. One trick that I do to do that, yeah, you can see me here like changing the lights around to see my features from different lighting. One trick that I do to make my furrows or like wrinkles is that I would use my damp standard brush with a really low intensity and a big size, and this way I get this very soft wrinkles and furrows when I'm sculpting. So again, looking at her from different views, and yeah, you see like I'm trying to see like her forehead. And of course you have to have in mind that most of the times, even that it's in the same film, that they use like different lenses for shots, so sometimes it's like it's different. So what you're trying to do is that you're trying to get like something in the middle of everything that's like an indication of how she generally should look like. And you would be really surprised if like the people who work in the industry, they will understand what I'm talking about when I say that sometimes when we get like scans of actors, if we are working on a film or something, that the scan like in clay, like grayscale, it doesn't look like the actor. And the funny thing is that once you start like adding the details and adding like the textures and adding the colors, then it starts to look like the actor itself. But the scan like in grayscale, it doesn't look like the actor, and this is like the scan of the real actor himself or the actress herself. So it's very funny thing that I learned, and it made me feel comfortable if I'm like not getting the likeness 100% when I'm just like sculpting in clay in grayscale. Made me feel like I can get it later once I start adding details or colors. So adding more details, refining, but as you can see, like all my details are primary and secondary. I didn't add any tertiary or any micro details so far, and I think I will keep it to that through this whole session. So again, I hope you guys would learn from this, that when you start a likeness or a sculpt, to just stick to this level of details for as long as possible until you have something that you're very happy with, especially anatomically and form wise, and then if you're making a likeness, then likeness wise. So again, it's very important for me to have this eyelids thickness, and you can see in this, that's a very nice reference to show you guys that there is some thickness in the eyelids. And also, as you can see, I'm trying to get this deep I don't know how to like correctly say that in English, but it's like the eyelids are like the eyebrows bags are like really sagging over the eyelids. It's not just like a line in between the eyelids and like here, guys, you see that it's not just a line. No, there is like an actual geometry that's going underneath the eyebrows. This is one of the things that it's very, very important. Now I'm like sculpting the some details on the lips, She has a her lips are like really very recognizable, like texture wise. She has this kind of like really textury, wrinkly lips. So I'm trying to do that. I'm playing around. It's very weird for her chin because it keeps changing from her getting like skinnier or getting fat again. It keeps changing. So I kept playing around with that. I think I changed it like a lot of times. But again, I will always get back to how it looks like in the Infinity War references. And as you can see now, I started to break my symmetry finally, especially around the nose. You will never find a person that has a symmetrical nose. That's a very important thing to break the symmetry with. And then of course also the eyes. You can never find some person that has like a perfect symmetrical eyes. And then she has this kind of like the modulus area, like this fleshy upper corner of the lips. It's very distinctive in her face. And she has this really wide zygomatic bones. So I'm trying to do that also. And a little bit of a cleft in the nose. And again, the width or the thickness of the eyelids. Changing the lights to see the forms from like different angle and different lighting situation. So yeah, giving thickness again to the eyelids. And as you can see, like collect reference from every angle possible. So now I'm like looking at the ears from this angle. Trying to give the earlobes a little bit of volume. So yeah, that's for example, this reference on the left here is one of the references where she was a little bit skinny. So you can see like her neck is like really thin and her chin is like really chiseled or sculpted. So I'm going a little bit crazy with the lips, which I think is not a good idea at this stage. So I think I will smooth it back. This is also one thing that I like to do, is that I like to like detail something and then smooth it back. And if you keep doing this, the layering effect of doing that several times, it makes it look like really natural. I don't know, I love to do that. So I think I would change how her chin looks like based on this reference, and then I will get back and change it again. So as you can see on the corners here, my topology is not helping me. But yeah, like I said, later we will have some decent topology. Yeah, looking at reference from different angles. I'm like trying to see how the like the tear duct area, like the corners of the eyes looks like. I keep jumping around. I try not to stick to one area for a long time. Keep jumping around, fixing here, fixing there, and this way my eyes don't get used or stuck to just one area. And I keep noodling in it, and then I forget about the rest of the portrait. I try to like bring everything to the same level at the same time. So again, like the shape of the chin, the shape of the lips, and that's what I told you that I will go back again and soften it. So one other thing that you have to also have in mind while you're sculpting a likeness is that the face proportions changes a lot with expressions. So for example, if someone is smiling or laughing, the proportions and like the contour of the face changes a lot, especially from like 3/4 or side view. So you always have to have that in mind. So you don't want to be like making a neutral uh, expression and you're like looking at a face smiling and you're just copying the shape exactly as they are, because it's gonna be very different, volumes and proportions wise. Now I'm like trying to give her this kind of dimples at the corner of her mouth. So that's basically the way that I sculpt, guys, is that I just use the clay buildup brush and then I keep adding volumes and then I smooth them. So I add volumes and then I smooth it. I add volumes and then I smooth it, and that's the layering effect of this makes it look more like clay for me. And then of course I use the move brush. Uh, and when I use the move brush, I love to use it like a really big uh, scale for the brush with really lower intensity or medium intensity. So looking at the profile or like side view, on the other side view, and that's what I was telling you guys. So now I'm gonna be looking at her nose, so I will not give it that much attention like to the mouth or the cheeks area, because I know that she's smiling, so this means that her cheeks are gonna look different and her mouth is gonna look different than if she was like making a neutral expression. And again, like seeing like from 3/4 from the back. Trying to bring everything to the same level, so I would go back again to the ears and try to sculpt them a little bit every now and then. Seeing it from front. So side view for the ears. And as you can see, like I didn't change it that much, because I don't care about making it perfect for now. I don't know why I added the like the ear holes for the earrings. It's not important at all at this level. So again, looking from side view on the other side. And when you're looking at side view, like if you have a reference and then like the reference that I have here on the left side, that's not like a 100% side view. She's still like rotating her head a little bit, so it's like something in between like 3/4 and side view. And when you are looking at your side view in your model, try to imitate that, because I see a lot of people who are like looking at reference like what we have on the left here, and then they have their model like perfect side view, and then they are just copying the shapes, which is not correct. So try, even if she's like turning her head a little bit around, then try to do that. So you see, that's what I'm doing now. So you see, I have a little bit, like a tiny bit of her left eyes showing while I'm like sculpting the side view. Yeah. So she's starting to look a little bit better. Still not happy about the likeness so far. So yeah, that's the doubt that I was telling you about, is that you keep trying to change something and then no, it doesn't look right, and then you go back and then you keep doing this. And when you start doing that, it means that now you're not seeing anymore. You need to just save what you've been working on, close ZBrush for now, and maybe start again tomorrow with fresh eyes, and then you're gonna start to see uh, something new that you've been missing yesterday. So for some time I got like obsessed about how the hair should look like, and I also don't know why I did that at this stage. But yeah, it's just sometimes happens that you would get obsessed with something that's not important at all at this stage. I was like considering it like a good thing to keep working on her hair, so that I would forget about her face a little bit and then get back to it with like fresh eyes. And I'm like trying to do these things, like adding a little bit of details to see if it's gonna get the likeness better or not, which definitely didn't make any difference. So back again to the overall volumes and shapes, and now again still obsessed about the shape of the hair. And then the good thing about the shape of the hair in this reference is that it gave me an indication of how her skull should look like the height of her skull. So I think now I will start to sculpt a little bit of kind of like very rough volumes for like the eyebrows. Just wanted to have an indication of her of where her eyebrows are going to be. So nothing serious at all, just like very sketchy to have an indication. And then playing around like with the volumes and the bone shapes on her forehead. This is one of the areas where the shape of the skull really makes a huge difference, because it's very bony, and even the muscles around this areas like the frontalis and the temporalis are like really thin, especially for females. So still obsessed about the hair. I'm just using it as an escape, to escape from my eyes being blind to the likeness, and then I go back again to the face after some time. One other thing that I would tell you guys to keep away from when you're making likeness is like images that looks like heavily photoshopped, like this one from the poster. So it's so much better if you're like using images uh, like done from real life, or images that's from stills from a movie, and try to stay away from the photoshopped posters, because they tend to like change the shapes a lot in their retouching. So I'm like trying now to play around with like the jaw shape, but then I changed my mind. It looked like really wide, and now I'm like widening her eyes width a little bit, because like I told you earlier that she has like really wide uh, zygomatic bones. So yeah, I think I'm like almost close to the end of this video, and I can feel that I'm already starting to like get blind, and I can't see like the likeness anymore. I can't see what I'm missing anymore. So so that's when I just stop the recording, and then I would start it with fresh eyes the next day. Let's see if I'm gonna continue sculpting for a long time. Again, broken symmetry, sculpting on only one side again, getting back to that. And then I would go back again to like symmetry in like major shapes, like cheeks area. Like trying again to do this thing that I'm telling you guys about, is that to have like really big uh, overlap between the eyelids and the like the bag of fats underneath the eyebrows. And yeah, I'm like trying to add this kind of volume for this bag of fats underneath the brows. Funny thing about anatomy is that you keep learning all the names in Latin, and then like a couple months later you don't remember anything. But the good thing is that you have to always like at least keep remembering the shapes and the locations of them, and that's what really matters. Unless you want to impress people, then it's really important to learn the Latin names. So I'm trying to make her neck look better, which I didn't have like a lot of reference for it, especially in this film. My main reference, she's always wearing a high collar jacket. So my most important view is the 3/4. I think you can measure the success of your model from the 3/4 view. So yeah, that's it, guys, and I hope like the very first video was helpful enough, and next video we're gonna take it from there, and then I'm gonna like totally break the symmetry, start going crazy with the non-symmetrical sculpting. Maybe I will start to introduce a little bit of like tertiary, secondary, like detailed secondary and tertiary details. And yeah, maybe I will also start to maybe introduce a little bit of black and white kind of values painting to maybe start to see the likeness better. Maybe I will even start like painting the eyes, like give it some textures, and then we will see how the likeness will go from there. So hopefully this video was helpful. Please, guys, just leave in the comments any questions that you have so far about what you've seen in this video. If there's one part that you feel like I went like really quickly over and I didn't like explain it as much as possible, then just please ask me about it, and I will try to maybe mention it in the next video, or at least answer that question that you have in the comments. So yeah, that's basically it for our very first video on the new series, and see you guys next week.